And welcome back, everyone. We've talked before here how instrumental music therapy, the arts in general, if you will, is for healing and therapeutic purposes. And part of that is connected to a wonderful organization in the greater New York City area, Baltic Street Into Action. And we've done a number of podcasts along the way to illustrate this point, how music therapy is so important in the healing process. I believe today we're going to really push that point with our guest and the gentleman that's back here today, the president of Baltic Street Interaction, Peter Jampel, joins us once again. Peter, how you doing?
Steve, I'm great and so glad to be with you.
Good to have you back here. And the guest that you've brought with you to join us today has a lot of experience, relevant experience in a very traumatic and tumultuous situation. And we're going to learn a lot today. Peter, could you tell us who that is?
Yes. So I'm so pleased to be able to present our guest today, Dr. Tamar Hadar. Um, Tamar is a music therapist who was originally trained at Bar-Ilan University in Israel, then got her doctorate there, trained at New York University's Nordorf Robbins Center in music improvisation therapy. Um, Tamar's work has focused on um, working not only with children, children with autism and other populations, but she's a trained family therapist working in an approach called child-parent psychotherapy. So Tamar's sensitivity to the way in which families as a system interact and affect each other is a distinctive aspect of her work. In particular, since the October 7th massacre in the border areas to Gaza, um, Tamar has worked in a center near Haifa, a center for resilience. And I think the word resilience is really important here to understand. And her work has focused on not only the traumatizing effect that that massacre had on the individuals who were directly impacted, but how it has rebounded to affect the entire family and understanding a term, transgenerational trauma, and how the traumatic effect between parent and child and amongst the family members is interactive and requires a sensitivity to the dynamics of family systems. So, Tamar, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your coming on today. Um, and perhaps we could just start with um, how your work with the impact of October 7th's traumatic events has played out with your music therapy practice. Um, by the way, Dr. Tamar Hadar is a faculty member at the Haifa University Music Therapy Program. And so how it's affected your practice, what you have seen in terms of how music works in working through the effect of such trauma.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me and for having me today. And yeah, thank you for this introduction. It was so comprehensive. And I'll try to outline a little bit of this work that I did in the first, actually, it was in the first 6 months after October 7th, what we call here the 7th, where a lot of families and communities that were in the border of Gaza and were directly attacked in this huge terror attack were actually evacuated and displaced from their homes. For some of them are still being displaced. The specific community I worked with most of them went back to their home kibbutz around April last year. So, well, it's difficult to try to remember how it all started, because in the beginning it was all a very big mess here. I mean, I was fortunate enough not to be directly impacted by October 7th. I lived in the more northern part of Israel, and not northern enough to be directly attacked daily by missiles like like many of the Israelis, but it's a little bit further here. But it was really waking up and thinking, I mean, the first few days were just a shock. And then after a few days, I was like, okay, I need to step back into my therapist role. First in the developmental unit, the EI, where I work as a music therapist, and to see how I develop with a manager their protocols to help the families, because everyone were traumatized. Like we were all, and we're unfortunately still, I mean, in trauma. So this is like one big thing to understand, that it's not just us and them, it's levels of trauma, which is horrible, but that's the way it is. And then everything kind of shut down, schools, universities. So for long weeks, I didn't have to attend the university. And after a week at home, I thought, okay, I'm gonna build this temporary music therapy practice in one of the hosting villages. There were villages that were hosting the evacuated communities of the displaced families. So I have a connection with one of those villages, a personal connection there. I studied there as a young flutist back in the days. And it was very quick to form this. And in the beginning, it wasn't even part of those resilience centers. It was just a very independent kind of, just let them come. I work mainly with children and parents, and it was kind of, how do you say, like first aid kind of music therapy. And after a couple of weeks, it became a little bit more established, and the resilience centers took over. And we started to kind of thinking, okay, who are we working with, and when and how? But immediately music was alluring for many of the families. They really just wanted to come and to enter the music room. And I built a really nice music room there with all the, with 3 pianos and a drum set and all the instruments from my house. I would pack it in a big suitcase, and it was this feeling of to give them as much as we can. They were, in such an unbearable situation. And
Tamar,
that was
did it feel like that was at that moment, you knew it was therapy, but did you feel at that moment in the days, weeks, even a month or two after the horrific situation, did it feel like a diversion for those that you work with?
sorry, like you mean like just going someplace else or something like that? Or I
Yeah,
did
just something else to focus on, but something that maybe is positive, pleasurable, hearing music, making music. Um, Again, you knew it was therapy. I'm
yeah,
sure, the others that you work with didn't view it as therapy initially. It was more of we're in a happy spot right here.
definitely. I think they didn't know, but a lot of them told me like separately, like, wow, we can just be here in first in quietness, calmly, and it's the first time, like many mothers or fathers told me, it's the first time I can see my child. I didn't see him up till now. It was also because they were displaced to these temporary housings, which were really, really small and hot, and it's Israel. So they were all outside all day, children running around, the community, everyone together nonstop. And people are coming from all over. Israel is we're very good at how do you say, at emergencies. We're excellent. Everyone is bringing things, and it's all at one big chaos. And they were like, wow, we can just be here and sing a song together. So yeah, definitely. I think the first meetings were really about that. But I also have to say that parents were terrified, and children had really bad symptoms. So very quickly, they really wanted help with very, very harsh symptoms for children who are otherwise very, very healthy. It was a huge gap, like these very strong families that I wouldn't usually encounter in my daily practice, and they're experiencing, how do you say, being moments of detachment where they're completely, zoned out. A lot of, tantrum attacks, but strong tantrum attacks for older children, 6, 7-year-old, a lot of anxieties, not being able to be alone at all. So they also really needed help.
Wow. Can't even imagine. What is it about music that heals, in your opinion? What's the magic there?
Well, first of all, and I'm thinking about one of a teenage girl. I work with teenagers, not a lot, and 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 she could just enter the room. She wanted to come with her mother. I asked her, "You're older. Do you want to come on your own?" No, I need my mom here. She was so smart. Of course, she needed her mom there. And that's part of the working with trauma. I'm just kind of opening a parenthesis, but it's like the parent was there, but he couldn't save them in a way. I mean, those children were saved and everything is okay, but it's like these moments of horror and no one can help. So they really need to kind of go back to that moment and try to gain their trust from the parents. Most of the children needed to go through that experience. But to your question, so the children, and I'm thinking about her specifically, but it really applies to most of them, they could just enter the room and start playing. And that's what they did. And there a lot of, and specific that girl, her first sounds, it's, I don't know if I can describe it, but it's traumatic sounds. It sounds different. It's short, it's abrupt, it stops like immediately. It's very, very different and it's strong. And the parent is like in a kind of a test. Can they tolerate it? Maybe not. And it's fine. Everything is okay, of course. And then very, very quickly you can work with that and you can join it. You can ask them, do you want me to join you? Yes. And then very quick, I mean, not too quickly, but still quite quickly, the music can change. The music can become a song. So this is something that immediately helps the child to feel a relief because they were pouring their anxieties and this whole kind of rigid situation into the music. And then something changed. So it also changes them. So I think this is very powerful to begin with.
Yes. As children and their families were able to reestablish safe boundaries in these new relocated centers where they could reconnect as families and then establish relationships with caregivers. The initial work of relief and, creating diversions and their own traumatic defenses, detachment is also clinically called dissociation. And
Association, that's the word. Yeah.
yes, dissociation is a traumatic response to creating a capacity to withhold unwanted thoughts and feelings and be able to create a safe space to recover. But once they reconnected, Hadar, could you start to describe the way in which the music therapy methodology changed and how the creation of familiar, grounded songs and how improvisational work started to create both safety and familiarity, but then the work in the improvisation was an opportunity to go into the traumatic events in a way that emerged spontaneously. Can you describe this next phase of the work?
Yes, sure. So So first of all, yes, like you mentioned, many of the children used spontaneously what I termed as grounding songs, like a specific song or piece of music, even like one of them was a 9-year-old guitar player, and she had these two tunes that she knew how to play, and they really used that as moments of kind of calming down, regulating, and even just entering therapy or closing therapy. And also these songs mostly they had this dual kind of role because they on one hand they used as this safety net that they could always come back to, and they used it, they just used it in therapy, and also it was kind of a musical basis to start improvising from, or to start even just entering different zones in therapy, like that, if we go back to that teenage girl. So like I think in her third, I think it was her third session when she entered, and she was like, you don't know what happened to me. She always talked very, very, very fast and very anxiously, but she was like, I went and I rode the horses and it was amazing. It was almost like music. And I want to write a song about it. So, and she told me exactly how to do it. She's gonna say a sentence and I'm gonna ask her what happened. And it was like this whole song, which ended with this refrain that we continued to repeat again and again and to improvise on. And she sticked to that song for many, many sessions. And then one session she started with it like usual. And then we improvised a little bit longer. And then she stopped and she looked at us in a very different way. And she just grabbed the microphone and she started to walk around the room and to narrate her whole story of those 17 hours she was in lockdown in her shelter with her family. Like, and it was, in the beginning, I was looking at mom like, oh my God, I was looking at myself, can I bear this? I mean, I wasn't near Gaza. I didn't hear terrorists outside shooting. I didn't look at the TikTok videos of people being, and still, I was just at home here in the small town of Tivon, but my older children were on a field trip, and they only came back at 12:30 p.m. And we woke up at 6:30, family calling us, stay at home, something happened, people are being kidnapped. What? Hamas took people, like things that you can't understand the words. Someone is explaining something and you don't get what is he talking about? So, even for me, although I can't compare my trauma to their trauma, but I had 6 very long hours where I didn't know, will the roads be blocked? Will Hezbollah start shooting from Lebanon? And my children are quite close now, and that's my thought. And she's starting to talk about how frightening it was, and the shooting, and her dad that went to protect, because a lot of the men in those villages they have weapons so they can protect because it is on the border. And then she's looking at mom and she's telling her, oh, but you're okay, mom. You went outside. It was dangerous, like outside of the house shelter. And you went to the kitchen and you cooked for us. Do you remember what you cooked? It was amazing. And she could connect to that. And it was like this monologue. And then she stops. And I'm thinking, I want to hug her. I want to hug mom, but I should wait. What? I mean, she's exercising here, going into the trauma, going back. I need to see where she's going with it. It was a tough moment for me personally. But she was looking at me and she's like, Tamar, we need to sing the song now. So she wanted her song. And I was like, but then I went to mom and I hugged her. I couldn't help myself. I felt like she needed it.
One thing I'm getting here is the expression. This allowed that teenage girl to express what was going on. And I'm sure that she was carrying it inside, all bottled up. This gave her the opportunity through music and putting words, I guess, to some of that music. I guess there's the healing aspect of it. I feel the angst in your story, Tamar. I'm sitting here, thousands and thousands of miles away, can't even imagine that whole situation. I feel I feel it for her and you and all of that. It's just it's hard to even fathom it. But thank goodness that you're there to allow this healing to take place. And did she have any musical ability, this teenage girl? Did any of these children really have any? They just grabbed an instrument and let it go.
Yeah. I mean, I had one a 9-year-old guitar player who was a little musician, and she used music in a little bit more elaborated way because she was a musician. So it was a little bit different with her, and it's actually interesting to think about it. Most of the children had no musical experience, but they entered the room like it's their own playground, and it was so natural. Yeah, definitely. Even sometimes it's even, easier. Like, you're asking also, Peter, about improvisation, and I'm thinking about this boy who 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 used to come. He was like a little scientist. Oh, how does this work? How does this work? Like, for that was part of, his own warming up. And then he took the recorder. He loved the recorder. And I think, for a reason, and he starts playing like these woo, woo. This happened a lot in therapy, also not only for the displaced, like they play like the sirens that you need to run to the shelter. So she started playing this. And in earlier sessions, this boy, always when I was asking, it reached a point where I could ask, like, or there was like one siren here, and I was like, oh, there was a siren. Was it like the sirens back in your kibbutz? And how do you remember, Dad? How was it? And he was like, no, I don't remember anything from the seventh. We just saw TV. It was all very kind of, detached and blocked. And then she starts playing these sirens again and again and again. And then she's like, it was so frightening. I hate this sound. I hate this sound. And actually, the sirens in the north are different than the sirens in the south because they have 10 seconds. So it's just they have these words. I never heard it actually. They made me listen to it. It's color red, color red, color red, something like that, and they have to lay down basically. They can't do anything. And for here we have the more, maybe you heard it in the movies, like that ooh, and that really grabs you, like in the, still I'm sitting by the window and there will be a motorcycle who does this sound, and we are all like this. I'm teaching in the university. I'm supposed to be like, and then we all hear this noise, and the students, we're all like, oh no, it's just a motorcycle. It's just an airplane. That's like, so yeah.
The sound of fear and the ability to recreate sounds that have a musical quality, but are also expressions of deeply grounded fear is a phenomenon that, you're talking about in terms of improvisation, opening up a world of sound, amusical sound that it comes from deep within. But I think, Tamar, you're also touching on something that crosses the therapeutic boundary and very much affects the therapist. And your own experience of fear and trauma and identification with the experience of your clients is, in therapeutic terms, called countertransference. What the therapist is experiencing inside while working with a client. And I hope you could tell us a little bit about how you manage your own countertransference in working with clients who've been traumatized when you're having your own issues of emergent feelings as you are working with your client.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, it was very, very extremely difficult. And I think every 4 or 5 weeks, I had to cancel the day. And because, also like 2, 3 months into the war, everything came back and kids came back to school, but everything was a little bit more kind of clumsy and had all these, soldiers around, kids. You don't just, I mean, now touch wood, they're independent again, but in the beginning it's like you're more cautious. Oh, don't go alone, don't go at night. So everything is a little bit more complicated. But every 4 or 5 weeks from the beginning, I felt like my heart can't take it. I felt like I need to stay at home. And I just,
you need a break. Sometimes you need as the professional providing the therapy, and I have to believe you have a lot of empathy, Tamar. Sometimes you need a moment. I want to just keep going here. We're out of time. We're out of time. Peter, thank you for bringing this all together today and bringing this to our awareness.
Yeah. Steve, this is an important aspect of the work that I feel obliged to introduce to our podcast. Tamar, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. There's so much to it that we're not going to have time to explore, but your work is very moving, and I want to thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Thank you so much for having me and for listening. It really means a lot. Thank you.
Oh, it means a lot to us, and thank you for everything that you've done so far. This is the true illustration of music therapy. Unfortunately, it needed to take place, but there it is. Baltic Street Into Action is the organization. Is it balticstreetintoaction.org, Peter?
It's .com. And in the one moment we have left, Tamar, I want you to also be able to identify how people who are interested in your work can find out more about it, support it, contribute to it.
Sure. I mean, I'm now publishing some works about this work that I did with displaced families. And anyone who wants to contact me is more than welcome. You can Google me, and my email will just appear. I'm in Haifa University, and anyone is more than welcome to shoot me an email, and I'm happy to connect.
Thank you both for today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
We'll be right back.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.